So, have you noticed it too? The summers just feel hotter, the storms feel crazier, and sometimes you look outside and the sky's this weird, hazy orange color? Well, you're not imagining things. Let's dig in and connect the dots between all this wild weather and those smoky skies.
It really all starts right here. Now, this isn't just some weather map. No, this is a map showing where people have died because of wildfire smoke. Those dark red spots, that's where the very air we breathe has become a serious, serious health hazard. For a lot of us, this isn't some far-off problem anymore. It's literally right outside the window.
So what's the link, right? I mean, how does a heat wave over here, a flood way over there, and all this deadly smoke, how does it all tie together? Well, the answer is actually floating high above us. It's this massive, invisible force in our atmosphere.
And that force has a name, of course. Scientists call it the polar jet stream. But honestly, a much better way to picture it is to think of a giant, kind of wobbly river of wind just flowing way up there.
Okay, so this river of wind, it circles the entire northern hemisphere, and its main job is to act like a big fence, keeping all that super frigid Arctic air contained up north. Now, what makes it flow is the big temperature difference between the cold pole and the warmer air down south. But, and this is a big but, the Arctic is now warming up 3 times faster than the rest of the planet, and that is making the fence weak.
And you can see the consequence of that weak fence right here. See, a healthy, strong jet stream flows fast with these nice, small waves. Weather systems come, and then they go, pretty predictably. But as the Arctic warms up, and that temperature difference gets smaller, that river of wind slows way down. It gets super wavy with these huge, deep dips and high crests. And here's the kicker. Instead of moving along, extreme weather gets stuck.
An atmospheric scientist, Dr. Jennifer Francis, she explains it perfectly. These big swings, these stuck patterns, they mean a heat wave isn't just for a day or two anymore, it can last for weeks. A storm doesn't just pass through, it sits and just dumps rain, causing these massive floods. The weather literally gets locked in place.
And you know, it's not just about extreme heat. Sometimes this whole disruption messes with the polar vortex. You've probably heard of it, that giant pool of super cold air that sits over the North Pole. When the jet stream gets really wobbly, it can let chunks of that vortex break off and just plunge south, leading to these unbelievable deep freezes in places that are just not built for it. I mean, think about what we saw in Texas.
So you've got these stuck extreme weather patterns. And when one of those stuck patterns happens to be a high-pressure system that just won't move, well, you've got the perfect recipe for a total disaster on the ground.
Let's just walk through it real quick. That wobbly jet stream creates what's called a heat dome that just sits there. That leads to relentless heat and long droughts. And what happens then? The landscape, the forests, the grasslands, everything just gets baked completely dry. It turns into a tinderbox. So when a fire inevitably starts, it has an almost endless supply of fuel. And that's what leads to the mega fires we're seeing today.
And look, this isn't just a hunch or a theory anymore. A brand new study has actually quantified this entire chain of events. As you can see in this chart, scientists have traced the path all the way from CO2 emissions from smokestacks down to air pollution and finally to the impact on our health and our wallets. For the first time, we actually have the numbers.
And those numbers, wow, they are just staggering. This is the direct cost, we're talking lives and dollars, of the extra wildfire smoke that's being caused by our changing climate.
15,000.
That's 15,000 additional deaths in the U.S. from wildfire smoke alone,
Costing us $160 billion in economic damages.
and this was all between 2006 and 2020. Okay, this is the part you really have to hear. Those aren't the total numbers for all wildfires. No, these are the extra deaths and costs that scientists have calculated are happening solely because of the influence of climate change on those fires.
And as you can see from these two maps, this burden is not shared equally at all. On the left, you see where climate change has cranked up wildfire smoke the most. It's heavily concentrated in the west. Now, look at the right. That's the mortality rates. They line up almost perfectly. I mean, in some of these areas, climate change is responsible for up to 60% of all the wildfire smoke in the air. 60%.
But the scariest part might be the trend. This is not a static problem. Just look at the bar for the year 2020. It absolutely skyrockets. Of all the climate-linked smoke deaths over this whole 15-year period, more than a third of them happened in that one single year. The problem isn't just getting worse, folks. It is accelerating fast. So, where does all this leave us? The science is pretty clear. We understand the mechanism now.
And the costs? Well, the costs are now being counted in human lives.
You know, Dr. Francis reminds us that while we can't just snap our fingers and reverse all of this, the future really isn't set in stone. The path we're on can be changed.
This research has put a very clear, very painful price tag on doing nothing. So it really leaves us with one final and pretty simple question. If we now know the staggering cost of an action, what's the value of action? What's the value of a stable climate, of clean air to breathe, and of a healthier future?